All right, hello guys. Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. And you guys can see the screen, right? Yes, no, can you guys see the screen? All right, cool. Thank you. So, what are we doing today? We're gonna do end-to-end story testing. All right, so here's the plan. We're gonna talk about web architecture. Probably it's the most technical and the most complicated topic for the whole entire course. So be prepared. And then I'm gonna show you what it does mean in real life. And we will do some theory around development process and releases and deployments and all that. And we will actually practice the story testing and questions and answers, of course. All right, so before we go any further, any feedback on your homework, guys? Let me actually maybe check the Goggle board. Okay. Yeah, it looks about right. So what do you guys think we have in terms of coverage here? How many more test cases we can write? Anyone? No? Okay. Yeah, so this is just the beginning. So if you really want to write a regression suite, basically test every single feature within. Yeah. Yeah, and this is just a plan. It's not test cases, right? So you're supposed to write a test case per every single kind of end branch of this tree. So it's going to be pretty big, right? So you just understand like what it is in real life, what regression means, and smoke. So smoke, it's like 10 test cases or so, very short. And all the most important things here, we want to cover every single feature that we have in the app. All right, let's go back and let's continue with a web architecture. So there are two major pieces in modern web architecture. It's front-end part. It's where we, meaning users, interact with our application. And as you can see on the picture on the left side, it's called client side, and there is a laptop over there. So that's what we use for interacting with application. It's not necessarily like laptop, but it also can be Android, mobile phone, iOS, mobile phone, and so on. So we humans interact with front end. And on the back side over there, you can see the server. And that server runs some code written in different languages, and there is a databases. So it's not what we interact with directly, but it's what's kind of behind the scenes does the heavy lifting for us. So yeah, there is a huge data storages and some other logic involved, but we do connect through the internet from client to server side, and it happens a lot really. So how it works. So if I open a browser of any browser really, and I navigate to any page, let's say google.com. So what happens, the browser, it's a front end. It's on my computer, right? So it's client side. When I enter google.com, it sends a request to backend of the Google. And Google will return us back HTML. So HTML is a standard language for web browsers. So all the pages in the web are built in HTML. And we use HTTP protocol to get requests and get response back. So two protocols here. And then browser will read the page. HTML is nothing but text. So we will read the page and try to identify all the images that are there, different scripts, fonts, and maybe sometimes talk to third-party backend applications. For example, payments, if you know PayPal, a lot of websites accept payments through PayPal, but those websites, it's not their application. PayPal does all the payment processing and they just use it. So it's another completely different application. It doesn't mean that you cannot use it, or like Google Maps. And some Uber, for example, uses a map, right? So Uber itself has nothing to do with maps, but they use third-party maps within their application. And then browser will take all that information and visualize the page, and it's called rendering, page rendering. Backend is really, we can test backend differently. So first of all, we have web services for testing, and it's like really network layer. So this requests and response. We can test databases as well. Which is very end, the last part of the backend. It's really just a data storage. And it's usually pretty big, and it has its own languages and different types of database. And we can do server-side testing. We usually don't do it, but it's some sort of experimentation where there is no front end and you deal with the back end. So yeah, just so you know, this is an actual image of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. So you can see the front end picture and the back end picture. It's kind of nice on the front end, huh? And not that nice on the back end, unfortunately. I mean, that's a life. Okay, on the front end, as you can see here, those are all different platforms that we human interact with. Web applications, for example, whatever we use in browsers. We can check functionality, usability, and all the rest of the types of testing that we covered in the beginning of this course. And then desktop applications, that's another different world. So if you have a computer, and I assume that you guys have computer, you probably have even browser itself, right? Browser is a desktop application that will open web applications within. Or, for example, Microsoft Office package. So all of those applications are desktop. And there is literally not that much of a difference comparing to web, but they usually kind of pre-downloaded first. So the whole application sits on your computer. So you don't need internet sometimes. Sometimes you still need it. But when it comes to different elements and logic, it's pretty much similar to web applications. We have buttons, we have like images, text, and so on. And mobile applications, so these are pretty popular these days. In fact, mobile application traffic now is bigger than web and desktop. I think, I cannot say dying, but it's kind of going away. There is still a lot of desktop applications out there. I don't know if you get a chance to work with them. I never had a chance to work with desktop, but I know quite a few people who test desktop applications. But mobile applications, that's something that we all have. Either it's Android or iOS. Yes, those are different platforms, and the applications are completely different, even though we have Google Maps for iOS and Android. Those two are completely different applications. They have different set of features. They behave differently. And the only common thing is really a name. So when it comes to front end, those are two different applications, but they do share the back end. So that's the beauty of front end and back end. Kind of back end is always the same, but front end you can change. So for example, if you open Google Maps in your web browser on your computer, Your front end will be web application, but back end will be exactly the same as your iPhone or Android application uses. So you kind of save. So front end is a way kind of saving. Sorry, back end is a way of saving on the development because you can share it across the platforms. And the only thing that you will need to implement will be front end. Does it make sense, guys? All right, cool. So let me show you what does it really mean in a real life. So I'm going to show you using our application Credos. I'm going to show you what are the front-end validations and back-end validations so you can identify them. And quite a few students in our bootcamp got a job just because of they know how to identify and report those issues. So during the interview, if you say like, okay, I know how to do how to check that, and it's probably a back-end issue because of this, you are golden. So okay, let me show you. Let me navigate to our application first, and I'm gonna just go straight to sign-in page. So here's the thing. So it's a simple page that we all kind of know pretty much everything because we wrote like a lot of test cases and defects. So if I, for example, so first of all, I need to open DevTools again. So remember last time when we tried to switch the view from mobile to desktop. So now, instead of clicking that button, I need to navigate to click this network tab right here. So once I do so, you will see this is all the network traffic that's going back and forth. So for example, if I refresh it one more time, so you see these are requests. So just to load this single page, there is quite a 46 requests happened. And the first one, you can see it was the actual this request with this address. So it went there, it got the response back, which is this, and you can see it's a lot, right? It's a lot of text really. And as I said in the beginning, so we can see there was an image at first, right? And some scripts, you see JS here, bundle.js. So now, so this is the first step. We get the initial HTML page, which is really kind of a template. And then it starts downloading all the assets. You see the CSS file, another one. These are JavaScript files. And then it goes WOF file, it's a font. And then there are some APIs. These are some information, JavaScript files. You see this one is actually an image. So, and so on. It's quite a few of them, right? Another font. So a lot of different things. And then once all of these are done, we can actually see it starts rendering. So there's quite a few more images. So once it's all done, it starts rendering. And now we see the screen. So with all this being said, every time we do anything, whatever action we do, it sends a whole bunch of requests to the backend. This is front end. It only lives in our browser, right? That's what we see, that what we interact with which is front end. Backend, for this course, we don't have any testing involved for when it comes to backend, because again, backend, it's 80% of your application, and front end, it's only 20. So, but the good thing, we don't need to know anything about backend just to perform functional testing. Okay, so let me show you an example. So for example, if I delete a password here and try to log in now, so you see, probably you haven't seen. Okay, let me do it one more time. If there is no password, sorry, one more time. I'm gonna delete all the calls so they're not distracting us. If there is no password and I try to sign in, there was no call related to login. So meaning that this, if I type in something here and then delete it one more time, you see password is required. There was no calls, but it says password is required. It's because it's a front-end validation. On the other hand, if I type in incorrect password, let's say, and if I try to sign in, look at the right side. I try to sign in, and nothing is going on. Okay, hold on, let me refresh the page. One more time. If I try to sign in, you see there is way more requests went through, and one of those requests was some Google ones, you see, fonts and some image. So this one, this particular one, you see it's red. And this is actually, you can see within that request, this is my username that I sent from here, and this is my password, which is incorrect. This W is extra. So it's incorrect. And because of that, I got this response back. You see, it says 401. It's not, it's red. You can see it's red, right? And here it says that it's unauthorized, bad credentials, you see? And after that, there is some other stuff going on, some images, styles, whatever, even some audio. I don't know where is that. I don't even see it on the screen. But you see now there is a different message got displayed on the screen. Username or password is incorrect. And that's why, because it was backend validation, it was backend error. So in this case, even the location is different, you see, and it took a little longer. For that one, it took almost, it happened almost immediately, but for this one, it took some time, like half a second or second maybe, because front end asked backend, like, hey, is this a valid username and password? And backend said, no, it's not. And that's why we got this message. Does it make sense, guys?
Perfectly clear.
All right, sounds good. So this is one of the the most complicated topics for you guys. Okay, if we're good on that, then let's continue then. All right, so let's go to the next one. So what is user story? In user story, it's informal, usually kind of natural language description of features while developing. Product owner, if you remember, and I have that slide a little bit further, it's how product owners write the request for feature. I'm gonna show you exact one for this project, so we will be testing that one. So they usually written in a form of from the perspective of a user. So it's not really technical, but you will see. It's very clear, like plain English, nothing fancy. You don't need to know how to code. It doesn't say like how to implement it. It's just a clear language. Before we go over there, so I want to explain you a couple of things. So I remember one of you guys asked me about what's build, and build is really a compilation process. So developers write a code in using any programming language, and that code is nothing but it's text, right? It's special formatted text then afterwards needs to be converted into executable code. So for example, if you have any installer on your computer, if you install any application on your computer, which you probably did hundreds of times, that's not the code. that's compiled, execute the application, right? So this whole, the build is really nothing but converting that source code into this application that your operating system can understand. And it's the same thing for web applications as well. So deployment is all the activities to make that software available for use. So basically, it's a few different activities with the transitions between them. For example, you need to developers first need to spin up virtual machine, install some software, and then deploy that build from the previous slide, this one, and then run it over there, right, remotely on a remote server. Because you can compare this application as, for example, before you can open a .doc file, which is Microsoft Word or Excel, any of those files, you need to install operating system, first of all, on your computer. And then after that, you will need to install the Microsoft Office package, which actually has some other dependencies. Sometimes it asks you to, or sometimes you don't even see that. It asks you to install like .NET packages and some different things, like very technical, right? So this is really what it is when it comes to deployment. So not just you not only need to have a build first prepared, but you need to create the whole environment. And when it comes to web applications, they have actually dozens of machines, virtual machines. Used to be real machines, now it's mostly cloud and virtual machines, and they need to spin them up, pay for them through Amazon is one of the largest providers of that, and then install all the software is needed to run that application, because Ruby on Rails or Java or JavaScript, those are completely different environments, and they require different set of tools in order to run that application. Okay, so release. Release is a distribution of the final version of an application to customers. So we usually do vast majority of testing before the actual release, right? Before it goes to customers. That's the whole point of having QAs in place. However, it doesn't mean that we never test anything after, or customers don't complain about some bugs. So for example, the Squidos, if you go to production environment to real environment where all the customers and providers work and make money, production will have a lot of issues and a lot of bugs, and we identify almost like 50 of them, right? So, and that's how it is. All the applications have bugs. Even Google or Amazon, they all have bugs in production. Usually they are not that high priority, so it's okay. It doesn't really block you from using the application, but and that's another art of testing and deploying without major serious issues. But before we release the application, we usually work on multiple stories. So you can see here on this image, every square, like this yellow ticket, represents a user story. Then we work on those user stories for usually a couple of weeks. And then we do a release. Basically, it means that every story that we worked on needs to be, first of all, created by product owner, then worked on by developer, then by QA person. Hopefully it doesn't have major bugs, and sometimes they do. So you will need to return it back to development. You cannot accept that stuff. And they will fix it and they will return it back. So you retest them. And once it's ready, you put them kind of in before production stage. And then you work on multiple, and then at a certain point you say like, okay, so these are the stories that we are going to release. We usually release multiple stories at the same time. Most companies, they try to release after every single story, maybe a couple of times a day, maybe a few times a day. but it is very hard. It's very hard. So because of that, it requires a lot of automation. Most of the companies don't have that much and will never have. It doesn't make sense for them. So they release every couple of weeks usually. So you may notice on your phone, sometimes you can find that you can like just unlock your phone and you will see some application being updated, right? So this is basically means that they released this application to production, and because you have like auto updates enabled, your phone will automatically download them. But it usually doesn't happen like every day. It usually happens like once 2 weeks or once a week or once a month, something like that, based on the release schedule. So let's do a quick recap on software development lifecycle again. So there is some customer, can be actual customers like myself or you guys, and we can on the market, let's say Apple Store, we can write a 1-star review for an application saying like it's buggy and it doesn't do like this and that, or it hangs or whatever, and then there's gonna be like 20 more people who will say the same. Rating will go down. Product owners will take a look, identify the issue, and will try to address it immediately, because if we give it a bad rating, it goes away. So the search engine will start rating this application that way, so it's not on the first page but on the second page and somewhere else, and that's why not many users will start downloading it. On the other hand, we have multiple teams within the company. For example, marketing team can ask to add some feature, update some images sometimes, or like change the flow a little bit, and so on. Different teams can request different features. So product owner will take care of that. The person will create a story, basically translate all the desired features into a little bit more technical kind of shape, but it's still kind of from user's perspective usually. And then developer will read it and try to figure out how to actually implement that, and we will test it and we will ship back to customer, but usually product owner checks, like accepts it first, but customer is who gets the deliverables, right? So customers order, like in the restaurants. It's not your server who eats the food, it's the actual customer who ordered it, right? So if it's wrong dish, or it's too salty, you will start complaining about that, right? So the same thing here. Okay, now this is kind of end-to-end workflow with all those terms. So once we get a story, once developers get story, they work on the story locally on their computer, and they can actually spin up that web application locally or mobile application locally, right on their computer using simulators or emulators or in the browser. Nobody else can see it because it's work in progress. And once they figure things out and do the development, they do some smoke testing usually and a little bit of feature testing, but it's usually not that deep. They usually just cover happy path and very, very light light testing, just because they always busy, they don't have time, they have 20 more stories to work on, so they try to push it as quick as possible to us. So once they do so, they have a special dev environment, which is their sandbox. So they will need to deploy their application to dev environment. They will do some testing and they will deploy it next to QA environment. And how do you know it's dev or QA? Usually URL is different. So in QA, why do we need QA environment? Because that's our sandbox. So we don't mess up with our environments. Developers, development environment usually is broken, always broken. So there is nothing for us to work on. But QA environment, that's usually, it's more stable. because we are not changing QA environment, right? Developers push the code to QA and that's it. It stays there unless we ask to do something with it. And that's where we do the most of the testing. So first of all, we do smoke just to make sure we can really start on testing. We don't waste any time. So it's a short set of, small set of test cases with the purpose of checking that environment and this build with this new feature is really testable and it's worth spending our time on it. And we usually do proper feature testing, which we will start doing in a couple of minutes. And then if we see it's very bad, something critical that we found or whatever, we push it back to dev. They will fix it, they will deploy it to dev environment again, and they will deploy to QA environment again so we can retest it. On the other hand, if it's good to go, there is no major issues or maybe no issues at all, we will ask our team to push it to stage. Sometimes QAs do it themselves, sometimes they don't. And stage environment where actual user acceptance testing happens. And this is, as it states, acceptance, right? So customer, whoever it was, they will go there and check like, okay, is this button red color now? It used to be green and we ask it to be red, right? Is it red or it's like orange? Or there is no such button at all. So usually stage environment or staging environment, it's pretty clean because QAs took care of that already, right? We tested it and we kind of confirmed that it's good. So your stage is usually stable and nice and everything works fine. And in fact, it's usually kind of a mirror of production. So it has the same hardware, the same speed, like performance-wise, and it's nice and clean. It doesn't mean it doesn't have any defects because we never did any regression yet. So yes, we tested particular story, which is if you take a look at our mind map, one story, if it's like one page, it's not usually it's not the whole entire page, it's usually a part of page. So yes, we did test that and it's all good, but we never checked the whole entire page. We never checked the rest of the pages at all, right? So that's why we perform regression testing in stage environment with this 190 point inspection, or as you could see, could be like 500 or 1,000 point inspection, right? For us, we don't really have, for this application, we don't have like QA or stage. It's kind of, the one that we have is called test. And I would say it's kind of both QA and stage, whatever you name it. Developers do have their own environment. We just don't have access to it. We don't care. And then we have production. So when we add feature by feature, one by one, for maybe for 2 weeks in a row, we add new features. Now, because we tested every single feature, now we need to test the whole thing because we, let's say we added 20 more features. So this stage now has 20 more features than the production environment that actual customers use, because the production environment was the one before, like 2 weeks back, right? 2 weeks old. So now in this stage, again, we run smoke just to make sure it's testable. There is a point of running regression, and then we run the whole regression against stage. And yes, it's time consuming. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, of course, because of that. But that's really the only way for us to know if the quality of the application is good enough or not. Sometimes it happens that it's not, because while testing those features, we never tested some other area that got affected by these changes. That's why it's very important to run regression. And this is really a report for us that says like, okay, out of this 500 test cases, 490 passed and 10 failed. And out of those 10, let's say there are like 8 very low priority defects and 2 low priority defects, or mid priority, like right? So, but no high priority. In that case, we will show that report to management and say like, or to our team, and we will say like, okay, since there is no major issues over there, and this is a list of issues that we found, we don't think it's critical to kind of not to release to prod, because you see release, then it's a process when we turn the stage code, that application that runs in stage before, nobody sees that except for us and the teams. We kind of switch, we replace current production with that application that is in stage right now. So now it becomes available for all our users. And if it's web applications, most of the times you will not even notice the difference because it really looks exactly the same. Maybe somewhere something got changed, but again, not always it's noticeable even. The same for mobile applications. Even if you see like this spinner is on top of some application icon, you see it's being updated. If you open it, you may notice that there is no visible change. Maybe there is something got changed somewhere, but you need to look and try to figure this out. Sometimes though, you open it and it's completely different application, or you open it and it asks you to log in, because we kind of, as a human beings, we are kind of lazy, right? So we don't really want to log in every time with our password and email. So we save it, we use like Face ID or fingerprints, whatever, to kind of automatically log us in. And you may notice that you actually logged off for some reason. And it can happen that with the new update, with newer version of the application, you got logged out. And in production, once we release, we usually do very like the minimum of testing. Sanity, which is like when we kind of very quickly check those features that they got to production. We usually don't test like them all completely, but we just make sure they got it, they made it to production. In smoke, just to make sure, again, nothing, all major functionality works, because while releasing, sometimes there could be some issue can occur. And I've seen that some production can be broken sometimes. So just run smoke to make sure it's not broken. So any questions, guys? Is it clear? So sanity testing, yeah, I know we didn't cover that. It's basically testing a story, but not in depth. It's very like lightweight testing of particular story, just to make sure it made it to production, nothing else. So for example, if there was a story to change buy button color from red to green, let's say, sanity would mean that you, once released to production, you will go to that page and just make sure the color is changed, but you don't usually click on it. You don't try to buy like 2 products of the same. You don't check like many of pages, different pages, and so on. It's just very brief check that, okay, that particular feature, which is like now it should be red, it's red. Okay, done. So UAT usually done in stage testing, in stage environments, excuse me, which is this orange block over there. So it's still before it goes to production, but it's a last environment. So basically stage is kind of a release candidate, right? Something that we almost kind of, so the one that we're gonna push, we kind of assume it's good enough to be really, to become a production, but it's still not production. So there is still a chance for us to find an issue and don't go to production with this build. And sometimes we need to fix the stage build. It's not like all the time. It doesn't happen like every time, but sometimes it happens. That's why we need to run regression one more time if there was a change. So the question is by testers. So user acceptance testing is usually done by product owner. So basically, or by your customer, if it's internal customer. If it's external customer, then there's usually no user acceptance testing done by the actual, but there are some other options. Don't want to go too deep on that, but it's usually product owner or internal teams like marketing. Before go to production, they would check. We will give them a link and say like, hey guys, is it what you wanted? But it's not released yet still, right? So they can really say like, oh, it's actually, we thought it will be, it will look differently. It will be like round shaped, but we forgot to tell you. So we will be okay. It's not too late to change it, right? So yeah, customer satisfaction. All right, let's actually practice writing. Hold on, what it says, all right, test case. It's actual testing a story. It's a bug. It's a typo. So let's open, let's navigate to Quidos and at the same time open a story. So I prepared a story for you guys. Let me open this up. So in Jira, if you open like either backlog here, you see we have sprint 1 and we have 20 stories here. They all really duplicates, so you, every one of you can grab and work on their own story, but in reality, of course, those are different stories. So different developers can work on different stories at the same time, and you can, after developer, you can pick up whatever is available and test it out properly. But I'm just gonna open the first one. And oh yeah, there is a board actually. You see active sprints. So these are columns that somehow represent this slide, or this one, or this one. They all related to each other. So product owners create their tickets and they usually put it in to-do column, meaning that it's something that we want to do, but it's never been assigned to anyone. These are to-dos, right? Something, tasks that we need to work on. Then there is usually a dev column. We actually drop that just for convenience because we don't have developers really as a part of our team with you, only QAs, right? But there is usually dev team. So what they need to do, they will grab the first one from the list like this, and they will move it to the next column. And once they do so, they will also update a name. You see it says assignee, unassigned. So I'll just click assign to me. And that means that I'm working on this ticket and you cannot really take it, because we don't want different people to work on the same and kind of wasting, spending twice more time on the same, right? So this is like a dispatching. So you see, now I can see there is my photo here. So nobody else will touch it but me. And once I do so, now, well, if you compare it to this, it's actually product owner will be to do, developer, the one that we're missing, now QA column, right? And then customer, user acceptance test, you see accepts the feature. It's this column ready for UAT. So we move it there. It will sit there until someone from whoever requests that, product owner probably, they will move it to UAT and they will check like if that's something that they ordered. And then if they accept it, it will go to done, to the right one. And then it's going to be the same for the rest of the tickets really. And another one that while we're working on stories, so while developers are working, they will really deploy that code to the one that we're missing here. So while they're working, it's gonna be a dev environment. Once we get the story to QA for testing, like I did here, it usually means that that build now is in QA environment, this one, right? QA environment, in QA column, right? And it's mean that someone's working on that one. And once we finish that up, we will move to ready for UAT. and UAT will happen by product owner in stage environment. That's how it is usually. So all this build and column in Jira, the stage, and corresponding user, the role, the team role, like dev, QA, and product owner, right? They all really link together, and they have their own environments and stages in Jira as well. So we always know what is left on the left side. It's what we need to work on, and on the right side, what is done. And so we can always see the progress of what's left on our plate, and are we making it by the end of this sprint, which is really a time frame. At the end of that sprint, we're supposed to deliver this all stories. So are we making it on time or no? This is why we need Jira. All right, with this being said, while it's in QA now, I'm gonna open this up, and this is real story. As you can see, sometimes there are some images, sometimes no. In this particular case, there is no images, just a text. And let's see what it is about. So it's called forgot password functionality. And let me read it. So password recovery functionality must be available via email upon user request after clicking forgot your password on login page. We're like, okay. So let's see. This story is about login page after clicking forgot your password, right? So let me open this. So basically this one, right? So after clicking forgot our password, this is really what the story is about. And at the time it's in QA environment, it will be exactly as developers implemented it. So really for us, if they say like, okay, it's ready for testing, for us, there is nothing else that we need to do. We just go to dev environment. It's usually already there. And QA environment is this one, right? testquidos.tk. This is what it is. So we all know that, yes, this is the environment. Okay, let's read it. So expected behavior after forgot password link is clicked, a pop-up window, sweet alert, that's a name, they use special library for that. But it's kind of relevant information for us. Shows up saying your request was sent. Please check your email box with a K button. So, okay. How do you guys think, how would we test it?
Try following the instructions and what it says.
Yeah, right? Okay. Okay, after forgot password link is clicked, there should be pop-up saying your request was sent. Please check your email box. Okay, let me do it. So after, sorry, let me maybe close this. Basically this one, right? Oh no, hold on. This is, yeah, forgot password link, which is this one, right? So if I click it, okay, this is the alert. It says reset password instructions. Well, first of all, so first of all, it seems like it's not forgot password link, right?
It's like a step's missing.
There is a, it's called reset password, and it's actually not a link, but it's like a button, right?
The instructions were referring to the login page. You're already beyond the login page by clicking forgot your password. So it's like the,
no, but yeah,
it's the next line down where it says request a password.
Yeah, but this one in particularly, it says that click, there's should be a pop-up saying your request was sent. Please check your email box. So once we click this, yes, we do see this is sweet alert. You see it's kind of on top. So the whole screen grays out, and there is a kind of focus now and on this alert. So this is sweet alert, but sometimes they call it, usually they call it modal, but sweet alert is just some technology that they use, the library that helps building this. And it actually says that the wording is different, right? So this part is it in requirements, please check your email, right? Well, please check your email box. That's what it says. And this one says your request was sent, and we see that it says your password has been reset. So what do you guys think?
Could that be just a story creation error, or is it possible that that really doesn't matter much?
So I would say if there is a particular story that it has to be exactly what it says.
Then that
So
would be an
because
issue.
there is a exact wording here. So I would say, so first of all, forgot password, and it's not a link, right? It should be, well, here we see reset password. So that would be bug number one. And the second one, this message is incorrect. So OK button is there, right? It says OK button should be there, but the message is incorrect. So it should be exactly like this and here, which is wrong. And it happens a lot because developers are human beings. They're working hard, they miss stuff, they don't read, they on a rush, they don't read all the requirements and stories properly sometimes. So that's why we're kind of backing them up with the second opinion, you know, ask your doctor about second opinion. So that's exactly what it is, because it happens a lot just because we are all humans. Even we test this story, we still can make mistakes. And that's why we have this UAT here.
Well,
So
on the description, the first header says on the login page you click the forgot your password, but then it says after you forgot your password link is clicked. Then you see it's almost like it's been in the that notification has been put into the wrong step within the instructions.
yeah, it's kind of looks misleading, huh? But it's real story. I pulled that from their dashboard, so it's a real one. I read it. I made a couple of mistakes on purpose. For example, this one I actually modified that, so it's not a
Shame
bug,
on
but
you.
it's a yeah, it's a fake bug, right? If you create this bug and address that to developers, because I did it on purpose. I tested it out first and I found no issues, except maybe for this one. I probably missed this one because it how it was really. I didn't change anything, and it definitely the messaging is different. It's not link. Probably maybe some time ago it was a link with forgot password, but whatever. So now we can really create a ticket just against this first requirement. We can create one ticket, which is defect, right? We can say like forgot password, and then we can say button name is incorrect, right? It should be forgot password, and alert message is incorrect. This is exact verbiage that should be on it.
If you read it carefully, where it says after forgot password link is clicked, so you've already been on the login page, you've clicked forgot password, and then it's saying the pop-up window should appear.
Yeah, but it's kind of a pop-up window shows
But
up.
there is no pop-up window on the
Yeah,
login page.
on that particular one
After you
there
click
is
it.
no. It's just like just a window. But Sweet Alert is this one on
Yeah.
top. So yeah, sometimes you can see from by defining clear requirements. So that's why it's not testing, it's quality assurance. So if product owner writes very poor requirements, then what should we do really?
Get
Right?
clarification.
We will, well, yeah, that's a good, so this is quality assurance really. That's why it's called QA. It happens because product owner is another human being. And it's okay. Of course, we want to be more focused on the quality of work what we do, but it happens. So if we found something that we don't understand, we should clarify before we actually get assigned to ourselves, because before we start working on it. And this is quality assurance. Now we started testing it, and we see there is a mismatch. This is now testing, right? Which is part of quality assurance as well. But it's kind of late. We could prevented this if we found this out before it goes to developers. We could just have prevented it altogether as a team, and we wouldn't have to like deal with these bugs and well, this one probably we would miss, but something else we could have prevented, right? Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Not a QA project manager. It's usually with your team. QA project manager is for bringing you coffee. No, for making sure that your computer is working. If there is any conflict within the team, that's a person that should resolve it. And it's more like they involved in like organizing the work processes, not the actual work. So they're usually kind of outside of the team. It's usually either team lead or Scrum Master, but I don't want to really go too deep because I will have to explain you too much. All right, so let's see what else do we have in here. Once we do so, we should receive an email with URL to reset a password from this address. Okay, hold on, let me open this up. Just give me a second.
Do you ever find you have too many pages open?
Yeah. Hold on, give me a second, guys. I'm gonna open the right mailbox. They call it tab bankruptcy. So at some point you open so many of them, so you have to file bankruptcy. Meaning just close them all and start over fresh.
Yeah, funny mail.
Okay, so okay, this is my mailbox that I used. It's a real email box. That's my testing mail. Oh, hold on, that's actually not the one. It's the wrong one. Where is that? It's probably got to spam folder. Yeah, I knew it. Well, it happens. So yeah, this is the one. It's actually in spam, but well, it's not really. Nothing to do with the actual development, but yeah, you see, it's Google kind of tried to prevent me from being like scammed or anything. So it says allow user passwords. Click on the link below. This is the link. So first of all, probably I should move it back to inbox so it's not in spam because links don't work.
You could just hit the not spam button at the top.
Yeah, thank you. Where's that? Yeah, this one. Oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. I actually clicked report spam.
Oops.
What's the next button? Hold on, where does it go now?
There's a bug right there. They need more of a gap between them.
Yeah, it's a UI bug, huh? Okay, let me start over. So click this one one more time.
How would you test the time limit?
So, oh yeah, that's a good one. We'll take care of that in a second. So, not suspicion. Okay. Oh yeah, not spam. This one somehow didn't see it. And where's that email now?
It should have gone back to your inbox.
Is it? It's not in the inbox. Is it?
You might have, if you have it on set with filtering to
yeah.
social
Okay. So
and all that other stuff.
yeah, I found it. So it's in like all mail. Probably got filtered and got to like I don't know promotion whatever. No, it's actually the inbox. Anyways, so this is an email. Let's see what we have in our story. So they say email is received. Yes, indeed. with the URL to reset a password, right? So there is a URL to reset a password, okay, from info@quidos.com. It is actually from support@quidos.com. So what do you guys think?
Could be the wrong email
Yeah,
parameters were
it's a
set on the
bug.
back end.
It's a bug. So if it says it should be from this email, well, if there was no mention of any email, we would just, we wouldn't care at all, right? So we got an email, we're good.
Is
But
that
since
another thing
it
you changed?
explicitly says that it should be from this email box, then we say like, hey, wait a second, it's actually incorrect. So probably they just misconfigured it or whatever. In reality, I updated this email so you guys get another bug. And I found this out. They actually used this one before. I found another story, the one before. So that's a real email that they have as well. But so this one is second bug that you're supposed to open now in Jira, saying like, after receiving email with the URL to reset a password, it should be from this email, should be sent from this email, but not from this email, right? This is actual result, this is expected result, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's another bug. Of course, you would capture a screenshot like this just to kind of to show that it's indeed incorrect, right?
Sure, those developers don't change it before you have a chance to be. No, it wasn't wrong.
So yeah, that's another one. Okay, let's keep going. So once URL is clicked, it takes to Quidos website on a certain page with the text, please enter your new password. Okay, so I click that. It says, please enter your new password. Okay. And new password field should be masked by default. So which new password field, right? Should be masked by default with ability to unmask on demand and submit button. Okay, so submit button in there, and this one should be, whatever we enter should be masked. So we should not see what we're entering, right?
Oops.
Oopsie, right? Okay. Well, okay, we don't worry about this message. Of course, password is incorrect, which should be stronger than that, right? With some digits or, oh, so what should, oh, and the capital
You
like
might want to
this.
copy that if you do reset it.
Yeah, I'm not resetting, just, just messing around. But yeah, you see, it explicitly says that it should be masked by default with ability to unmask, right? And it's the opposite here, which is, again, it happens. So can we mask? Yeah, we can, but it's unmasked, right? So it's another bug. So how would you write it, guys?
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste.
And then just paste again, just with the wrong result as the.
Yeah, basically, yeah, let's create one. Let me start the creation here. So I just click create button. You can.
Did it give you a new tab?
So, and this is type of bug, right? So once we are here, so what would be the summary, guys? You all know how to write it now, right? Don't you?
Password reset bug.
So hold on, where is that? It's different. Okay, this one, right? So on a password reset page, so we can just go. So what's wrong? What's the summary?
Masking bug or
New password should be masked by default, right? Right, something like that.
kind of long, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So description, of course, we can basically kind of copy all those steps, right? Because it's logical flow. But what else? We can say like one request a new password reset, right? From password reset email, click on a link. You will be redirected to reset password page, and then expected
Default
result.
entry method.
Huh?
Default entry method.
Oh yeah, expected result. Oh yeah, right. Fourth, enter a new password. And expected result.
Password should be masked.
Password should be masked by default, but actual was
Unmasked.
password was unmasked, something like this, right? And then of course we wanna
Grab that screenshot.
we wanna take screenshot, even though it's kind of tricky, right? Because how do they know that you
didn't click the button?
You didn't click the button, right? But anyways, well, we do the best we can, really. So what else do you want from me here?
I confirm it again. Just wait.
Yeah, you can I don't know, ask someone to stop by and or well, what you can do actually, you can capture video, right? That will clearly state that clearly will state that you didn't click anything, you just click on that field, start typing, and it's visible.
Did you have any issues with attaching videos?
No. We have quite a few different services for that. There is a couple of free ones. You can also capture video. Just Windows has built-in a function for that. I mean, there's plenty of options. You can just either provide a link here if it's stored in the cloud, but usually because in a cloud, it's kind of you exposing sometimes sensitive information about your project. So just be careful with that. Usually they either give you an access to some certain tool that you can use that kind of they rely on and have some certain agreement in place, kind of non-disclosure agreement or corporate storage or whatever.
Internal
Or
cloud service.
or sometimes you can just capture it locally and then just attach the whole video to this ticket, because this ticket is hosted internally. It's not, Jira usually is not exposed to anyone from the outside, because it's basically, if you have access to Jira, you can find out like everything about this project, right? So that's why it's usually very secure. So if you just attach it here, like I'm just gonna Control V here, and where's my image? Where is that? I don't see it anywhere. Okay. Okay, what? So you just save it probably. Let me try. I believe I did that last time. No? Okay. Anyway, so you attach it here, and environment, well, we can say like, of course, it's like test environment. All right, now we know what was that, because sometimes if it's a story under development, of course, it's not in production yet, right? So it's in test environment. But sometimes when customers create those defects or those requests, sometimes they come from production, and sometimes you don't even have that issue anymore in your environment. But if you go to production environment, you will see what they mean. So that's why it's kind of nice to mention what the environment was at the moment of creation, and we can also specify like browser, which is what, Chrome, probably 79 on Windows 10, something like that, right? And that's basically it. One more thing. So once we create this, we can actually connect these two issues to each other. So we were testing FP169, and here we can say that relates to, and then we can just start typing 169. You see, forgot password functionality right there. So we can just do it like this. So in this case, you see it got updated here immediately. So this bug that we created, it has 169 issue related and the vice versa. You see, this one has, oh no, sorry. I need to refresh the page first. You see now it says relates to this. So now we have these two issues mapped to each other. So the same thing will apply to our test cases. Once we create those test cases, we can actually map them back to original story. So if for whatever reason it's not clear or anything, you can just navigate back to that story and read what was that story is about. Make sense?
It's useful.
So for us, for this particular class, what's cool about that, when also gets all your defects and test cases, by just looking at the assignee name here, she will know exactly who was working on what and what are the what types and what documentation was created, right? Because you're gonna have every one of you will have their own ticket, like a personal ticket, right? So we will have different set of test cases because of course you will do, well, some of you may not do anything at all, but some of you will do the best and create like many things here. All right, so if we just keep going, we may discover something else. But so this is how you do it. How do you feel about it? Is it like complicated? No? Yeah, not at all, exactly. You just a little bit. Sometimes it can be tricky. This one, again, this is a real story that I pulled from their dashboards, from their tracker. That's what it is. You just read it and you follow the steps, and then you try to play around. For example, what if you don't click this, or you click something else? So for example, if I go back once again here, so what if I like don't click reset password? I know we're kind of testing this, but what if I click this one, right? Okay, kind of worked, nothing wrong. What if I give it some incorrect email address? Why do I want to do that? Because they could actually break the feature while adding new stuff. So while we're working on that, if there was something already, they could break it potentially. If there was nothing, that meaning that nobody worked, it's a brand new feature. Nobody ever tested it yet, right? So we need to really take care of that then. So we will need to come up with all those test cases, like ask for to reset passwords for non-existing email, for example. What's gonna happen? Okay, user not found, not bad, right? Should not crash or should not like do anything crazy. Should just nicely say that, hey, that user doesn't exist. And you can see now that there was a red request here. You see it says bad request, user not found. This is what exactly we saw here. So that was the backend validation, right? Triggered. Make sense?
Because if it's a front end, if you remove everything from it, then would it give you a front end notice?
Yeah, you see enter email. No requests right there. It turned red and it says enter email.
It also added please enter valid email.
And this one. So yeah, it's front end definitely. It was there already, but once we deleted that, it front end triggered this validation without even notifying backend. So this is kind of nice thing about front end because why bother backend, right? It's extra load on the backend. It's kind of stupid question to ask, right? If you can prevent it, like why even bother? So yeah, it's nicely done in this case. Sometimes I saw another issue. If you click something, it would send 5 requests to backend. That would be the opposite situation. And I remember I reported that bug in backend developers where it's like, kind of they went crazy, like, oh my goodness, like that's ridiculous, because we've been building like highly performant application, and in fact while trying to do so, we introduced this thing, so on a click it actually sends 5. So it kind of defeats the whole point of highly performant application really.
Would that be something that was driven by the front end though?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer, but once I show that to them, they fixed that like the same day.
I imagine that took a load off their server.
Yeah, for sure, because we've been struggling on the load testing, and this kind of little thing, I don't know how it sneaked into the application. But yeah, probably it was a front end issue, because if there's 5 calls, who would send 5 calls? Backend to backend? No, front end to backend, right?
That's what it sounded like. That's why I asked.
So yeah, probably. But yeah, it was a long time ago. I don't remember any details. Yeah, you will see a lot of issues, like a lot everywhere. So yeah, you will write. Yeah, there was another question about at the beginning of the sprint, we write test cases against that user stories, and because it looks like testers do not have a lot of work at the beginning, which is true, because we have to wait for developers first, and some of those stories, developers can work for days on some stories, for like 3, sometimes even 5 days, just for one single story. Sometimes those stories are so tiny, like change an email, the wording, for example. So instead of like this validation, instead of please enter valid email, could be like please enter a valid email, right? So change like that, it would take like minutes really. And testing that, the same thing. You would open this page, you make sure that now this text matches with what it should be, and you accept it. So that's it, simple. Well, you still need to write a test case for that. And how would you write a test case? You will just navigate to this page, enter nothing basically, right? And you should see this message displayed with exact wording, right? Yeah, what else? Usually, yeah, it's a little bit slower at the beginning. What you can do sometimes to save time at the end, you can start writing test cases, yes, which is one of the techniques. It doesn't mean that because you don't have any functionality to write test cases against, right? You can only write them based on a story, because if it wasn't created, imagine there is no page like this because they just creating it. So what would you do? There is really nothing to see and play with, right? So it can be tricky. It doesn't mean you cannot do anything. You can still read the story, try to create your test plan, writing all those test cases, even like
Kaggle.
not. Yeah, you can use like Kaggle. You can just use any like notepad or whatever, just to put those bullets like, okay, one test case, like to click this, another one to click like close, another one like that. It should be, once you click, there should be sweet alert. So if you enter valid one, if you enter the valid and you click this, then it should be this alert. It shouldn't be like any page or anything, right? It should be like suite alert, which is, this is how it looks.
If you hit the
And
back button with that suite alert still up, would it change page but leave you on the suite alert?
if I click what? Back button on the mouse?
On the page to go to the previous page without clicking OK or exiting out?
Oh, you mean in the browser, this one?
Uh-huh. With the suite alert.
Well, I think here, whatever you click, it's really kind of doesn't matter because it doesn't do anything really. So if you click, it's probably just, well, okay, no, the suite alert stays there. Yeah, I believe there was a bug that we logged, right, guys?
Yeah, that was on the service in the.
So it's the same behavior. It seems like the suite alert behaves the same way across like the pages. Yeah, okay, yeah, good point. Yeah, who creates stories in Jira? It's product owner. So the person who is responsible for your team, that person keeps you busy and talks to different teams or different departments, or they review those, they do read those reviews that we leave in apps, or like Yelp reviews or whatever, Google reviews. If something like bad about your application that they can really take care of, and if it's consistent, meaning that a lot of people complain about that. So for example, some applications just crash. If you like click something, they crash. There you will see a lot of complaints on whatever market or whatever reviews saying that they will take care of that because it's important for business. They want you to be happy and they want you to keep using this application, right? But luckily for us, there is usually a lot of alternatives. So any application that you kind of struggling with, you can really use competitor application, and that's what they hate the most. They want to keep you, they want to make you, you know, use this particular application and upsell more and engage with you, so you a loyal customer. So because that's, by the end of the day, that's how they make money and stay in the business.
How hard is it to spot if multiple requests are being sent to the back end?
What?
How hard is it to spot if multiple requests are being sent to the back end?
It's basically the same. You will just see this in this tab. You will just it's a wrong window, right? It's a wrong one as well. I have so many browsers open.
It was the right one, no?
So on UI, you will not see anything, right? Because those requests, you as a user, you don't deal with those requests. You don't care really. As long as it works, you're fine, right? But if you are not a regular user, but a little bit more technical person, like QAs, for example, you can just spot them by looking at this tab. Hold on, I think it was this one. Or probably we kind of messed it up.
It was, but we went back one.
But yeah, so if you open it, and you will just see like the same call. Like for example, you see these two, KFOMC something. Well, they're pretty similar, but they are different, right? But you will see exact the same ones like 5 times here. And it can be hard to spot because it's 75 total. Imagine just for this simple page, it's 75 calls to the backend and to different resources, because you can see like where it's being sent. You see test Quidos TK, so that was to backend, and these are to backend. But you see this one, Max CDN Bootstrap something. It's not Quidos actually, it's some third-party server. And sometimes they go down and you will see like weird fonts or images are missing or whatever. You can actually see them here because they will be highlighted. They will be red the same way. Like we saw that one. It will be red and you can raise a flag immediately saying, hey, image is missing on the page, and why? Because it's red here. Probably it got deleted or server was down or whatever reason is.
The
So
source is not there.
it will be addressed by somebody. You never know, but somebody they will find out who knows what it is and where it goes and who where to go and how to fix it. They will figure this out.
Excuse me, Dennis, may
Mm-hmm.
I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit confused. I'm trying to understand how it works in a real life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that at the beginning of the sprint, we are testers, start to write these cases while developers write a code.
Yeah.
But you said, no, we can't because we don't have any UI and we don't know.
No, I said that it. No, I said that not necessarily, because sometimes there is no page. Like in this particular one, at the moment of this was initial request, so there was no such page at the moment. So it could be tricky, really, to write test cases. But if it's updating existing page, then definitely you can. Well, I would at least try to write some test cases just to save some time afterwards. Because usually in the beginning it's a little bit slower. By at the end you're rushing it through, because it's really like the deadline is like in an hour, and it's still, you see that 2 stories are still on the board, and and it's kind of a hassle, really. And you don't want to usually you don't want to delay, because it's not only about your teams. Sometimes it involves some other different teams, and you just don't want to be late. Just a rule of a thumb. But it happens, unfortunately, because we usually overestimate ourselves.
Not underestimate, overestimate, right? So just correct me if I'm wrong. Each user has several stories to work on, right? Or just one?
So it will be something like this. There will be a whole bunch of stories here.
Whole bunch. So I pick up myself, or someone assign me
This one.
those
No, you
stories?
usually pull a story. So for example, for developers, they see a list of stories. Whoever is available, usually it's like 5 developers or so in the team. So whoever's first will grab the first one. The second will grab the second one. But if I move one story from here to here, you see it immediately. All the team will see the change immediately without even refreshing a page. You will see once I pull it back somewhere. On your screen, it will just go away. So let's say it means that somebody else got it already, and you just get the next available. The same for QA. Developers will just put it in the ready for QA column, meaning that they finished the job, and whoever is available from QA team, assuming you're not alone over there, you can be, who knows, whoever is available, you can just pull whatever story is on top of the list. That's it. And you work it out, you put it either UAT or back into dev, and you pick another one, and that's it, really. Just grab the top one all the time.
Yeah. And what else can we do at the beginning as a testers? Do some regression maybe, or what else? If I have time.
Usually it's late for regression, but sometimes what happens is that you work on, you execute regression by the end of the previous sprint, and you find some issues, like some test cases are not updated. For example, you just, because you're supposed to write all these test cases, and if you read, it's actually quite heavy on test cases. You can write like, it's a couple of screens. You can write probably like 20 to 30 test cases easily just for this story. And if you don't write something, or you forget something, you're in the regression suite, some of those test cases will be outdated, right? So you may want to go back and revisit those test cases. So at execution time, you will take notes that, okay, this test case is it's kind of okay, but something needs to be updated. So you don't update it right away, because it will take you time, but you kind of take a note, and then in the beginning of the sprint, you can just revisit that test case and update it. So the next time it's all good to go.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sometimes if it's like very like too slow, it happens as well. Just what I would recommend you just take some course and start learning something new, like automation, for example, or
Good
API
idea.
testing. Yeah, seriously, I did it a lot, and you know what? Because you're not really like you're not doing. Excuse me, guys. I need to mute someone. So you're not really kind of wasting time or sitting doing nothing. No, if it's applicable to this particular project, assuming that it is, then you can improve the processes, or you can implement automation, you can get promoted later on. And a couple of good things here. First of all, it's your skill set. So it's not even about company, but it's about you, right? So once you learn, you're worth more, you know more, your job is secured and all that, and you work faster and so on. Only benefits for you. It benefits the company as well, because if you learn something new and you implement it and you change the existing and improve it, it benefits the company. And side effect here is that company actually pays for that time that you spent while it was slow and you were learning, and they will probably pay for that course as well. They actually pay you a salary. So it's like, to me, it's like win-win situation, really. And I wouldn't recommend you to watch videos or anything. Just try to keep, keep yourself busy with something related to work. Make sense? Yeah, in the beginning, of course, you see how big the project is. Nobody will ask you, nobody will expect a lot from you for the first month or maybe first 3 months. That's normal. Some of the applications, some of the companies, they will actually send you for some training, and they will say like, okay, these 2 weeks, you're not doing anything, we're gonna train you. And every day you will go to work, and they will be giving you like different topics to read, different presentation, demos, meetings, and whatever. And I've heard one of our former students, they got, I believe, into like 3 months long training. They said like, I didn't do a thing. They just gave me like, they just did a lot of training with me for 3 months, and they pay, it's like paid time. So it's like your work, because they understand these applications are huge and complicated, and there is a lot of documentation and logic involved for you in order to really start performing. So yeah, it's okay. So any other questions, guys?
Sounds exciting.
May I ask
Yeah.
one more question about acceptance testing? Because there are 3 types, right? Build acceptance, which is smoke, right? Release acceptance and user acceptance. I understand about user acceptance we discussed today, but how about release acceptance? It's still not clear for me. What is it? Release acceptance.
I don't remember I gave that to you, but release acceptance. So acceptance usually, it sounds to me like it's smoke in production, really what you mean. So right here, once you release that to production, you make sure all the functionality works, the same amount of test cases, like this one, smoke here, right? Just to ensure whatever you deployed and released to production works as it should. High level, not regression. Quickly, right?
It'd still be smoke then, and so it wouldn't be like in depth like
Yeah, it will be just open it up, log in, like do the stuff, create like a job project, buy it, and close it, right? The same test cases, really. So we usually write smoke and regression that way, so it's really environment agnostic. So you can run any set of test cases against any environment with certain limitations, because don't forget that production is kind of outdated, right? So if your test cases are the most updated and everything is done for stage, you cannot really run them against production, because production is like 2 weeks old now. It doesn't have all those features, right? At the same time, while doing it in stage, developers could push something to dev or QA. So something could be really missing in stage because the QA has newer version and newer feature in it. But it's usually neglectable.
When you're doing the production testing, like after it's been released, you just go and check make sure everything's functioning.
Usually you do it like right away, immediately, because imagine how many users Facebook has, like I believe something around billion or something. So it's like a huge number. Imagine, even if you wait for a minute, imagine how many users will go there and do the testing before you, and they can actually start complaining if something major is broken, right? So it's better to do it ASAP.
If, like, for example, like an Amazon or something like that, where purchasing is involved, how would they have like set up procedures for you to be able to purchase with certain cards that would go through the system and not actually charge?
So, sorry, could you repeat please one more time?
Sure, like if you were testing for Amazon as an example, and part of the release was something to do with making purchases, how would you test and have live, while it was live, have actual purchase data go through?
So they usually do it, they have a certain procedures. So usually they try to figure out the offload kind of time when there is not a lot of customers. For Amazon, probably it should be, well, it's like international company, right? But still, they probably don't have that much of presence in like China or Russia or in like Asia. So I would guess that they will do releases at night, because the vast majority of clients, again, I'm assuming, I've never seen the geography, but I assume it's like United States, Canada, like UK, Europe, right? But probably not like Asia, or maybe not like Pacific Ocean countries. So they probably do it somewhere in that time. So not that many users are on using Amazon. Sometimes they can do like a hard, you could see if you go on the website, it says like technical issues, something like that. It will be back in a minute or so. It means that they're doing a release right now. And usually they try to do it as quick as possible. So it's rare when you see those. Sometimes you can actually, you can just do the purchasing and there was a release and you wouldn't even notice it. It's tricky from development standpoint. It's tricky. That's why they make that much of money, and the teams are like thousands of engineers over there, and it's like major company, one of the largest companies when it comes to capitalization, right? So they know the stuff. Okay, so could you please send a new link for Slack? The link is in the first lesson, does not work. Okay, will do. I learned a lot of myself and it's kind of messing my head. Ooh. I mean, sorry about that. But this is usually, if you go online, there is tons of different resources. I think most of them really don't make sense because that's not how it works in real life. It's like a lot of theory, but you don't even know how to apply that to practice. And this is how most companies work. So that's a practical side of it.
I sent the Slack information, by the way.
What?
I sent the Slack.
Oh, cool. Well, that link could have expired already because it's kind of
Worked for me this morning.
Oh, it worked. Okay, all right.
I just did it like 2 hours ago. That's why it's like I had it already copied and pasted into. I just hit paste.
Okay,
And it was there.
all right. Thank you. Yeah, so this is just a bug hunter, right? It's just very, very beginning. Even though you can find a job with this knowledge, most of the like the first stage is really, it's called QA analyst. So all that you need to do is just read the stories like this and test. Just follow the guides, the guidelines, and just do what it says to do, and you will identify like a lot of defects right away. And you just write test cases like we did yesterday, but the scope will be this particular story, right? So if you work on something like this, you will just go one by one throughout like all the pages, and you will create those tens of test cases for that functionality. If you do have some test cases created already, you will need to review them and sometimes update them because they can be outdated now. So at the time of the next regression, all your test cases will be up to date and it will go smooth. Okay, so the homework for today is gonna be just finish up testing the story. So the same one that we started. Okay, cool. So I see Sean already got his story. So yeah, just move it to InQA, assign it to yourself, work it out, create those defects. We already identified 3, right? And 1 we created together. Write test cases for that story. It's gonna be a lot, right? Basically everything, all those things, and multiple test cases per requirement. And that's it.
Question.
The slides are not on LMS. I believe I updated that today, but yeah, let me check. I will take care of that right after. Yeah, go ahead.
So how often when you're creating test cases, do you go back and see, okay, these test cases are completely bunk, they're bogus, they're not needed anymore, and how often do you get rid of them?
Yeah, so if something like this comes up, you will need to open that area of regression suite and go through those test cases. And I mean, it happens. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a part of the job, making sure that all the test cases are maintained. If something new, you need to create those new test cases. If something needs to be updated, you update them. If something is completely obsolete, you just get rid of them. But for a story like this, I would say it would probably take you like a day or something just to take care of like all the steps, create all the test cases and everything. This one is pretty big. They usually try to create as small stories as possible but it would be boring for us.
Thanks.
It would take 5 minutes and you wouldn't learn a thing.
I'd rather learn, so thank you.
Yeah, usually it takes from 1 to like 3 days on average per story. That involves like 2 days of development time and like day from QA time. I mean, days sometimes it's very rough estimates, and even though if it's like 3 hours, it's kind of fair to say that it's a kind of a day of work, because you never know. You still really guess like on your estimations. But that part, the planning part and grooming part, estimation part, yeah, it's not a part of this bootcamp. Yeah, otherwise, it would take us much longer. All right. All right. Thank you, Matthew. I will check that right after we finish. So if we don't have any other questions, guys, we'll see you on Thursday then. All right. Bye-bye.
Asvidanya.
Thank you.